There's my weather map just popped up. When you're looking at it, it is going to be beautiful the next several days with temperatures much more seasonable and even warming up beyond that, up into the lower 90s. We have some gentlemen making their way in here. We talked yesterday and a few minutes ago, actually, about the Utica Master Plan, and the committee members that got together to put this together. Obviously, a master plan was created back a few years back. $300,000 worth of a master plan, and times have changed. A lot has happened since then, as mics are being moved around. I'm trying to give these guys a chance to get in. James Norrie is the chairman. J.K. Hage and Bob Hines also in here this morning. Gentlemen, good morning.
Bill, great to be back.
I'm excited. So tell us, what does this master plan look like here? What is Utica going to look like? What do we think?
Well, I'm delighted to be joined by my two committee members who were instrumental in shaping this. This is almost 2.5 years worth of work.
Yeah.
And I was saying, as I've been doing the media circuit this morning, Bill, that it's important to understand that we do not take a position on any particular project. We're not really here to be a shadow planning department. We're not attempting to interfere. What we're doing as a group of citizens is trying to provide some maybe some guidance, some foresight that's going to last for 50 years, right? So that when we come to the details as a common council or as a city making decisions about individual projects, there's a playbook. And, you know, if, to use a football analogy, which is very dangerous for me, and I'm sure JK is smiling. He's smiling as I speak. But, you know, we talked about this a little bit. This is sort of like the playbook. And so the quarterback is the mayor and common council, and now they have a bit of a playbook. And so the question is, do you run the ball? Do you throw? Who do you throw to? What do you? It's that kind of thing. It really is supposed to be an enduring document, and I'm very proud of this process and very proud of my colleagues.
All right, let's start with JK and your thought. First of all, this is being done without spending taxpayer dollars. I believe that's big.
Complete volunteer effort.
Yeah.
And when you add that to the 2.5 to 3 years prior to that, the volunteer committee that did the first master plan, and then the Common Council adopted that master plan. Forgive me for being a lawyer for a moment.
No, you're laying it all out here, laying out your case.
And then the Common Council, I think very prudently decided, Bill, that there ought to be a citizens group to have some continuity from the original volunteer group to kind of monitor and update the master plan. And that was our charge. And we've spent the last 2.5 years reviewing the original master plan that I was on the original group too. So this is 5+ years of volunteer effort. And the idea is to move Utica into the 21st century, not to, as the chairman said, give an imprimatur to any particular project, but to take a 10,000-foot view of the city and say, what do we want this city to be in the 21st century?
Bob, what is Utica going to be?
Well, it's interesting, Bill. I'm an architect, a total believer in Utica. I live in the middle of Utica. My wife's relatives go back to the first president of Utica, and I was here in 1963. Standing right at the busy corner. I saw what was going on. I had a hamburger in Woolworth's. And what's going on right now is not the same, but literally we have a blank canvas in the city. And what's been put together in our work on this committee and the original master plan is the roadmap, the playbook on what can be done. We don't have to give away the city to developers.
Right.
There's very succinct guidelines that have been promulgated and adopted previously, the Gateway Historic District. There are things in the city that give us great opportunity for good planning, form-based planning, doing things with transparency. And that's the great future in the city. The thing that I find here is that, and I've done many projects around the world, there's cooperation toward review and issuance of permits. Where it might take me 5 years in New York City to get an approval, I can work with all the agencies and within 6 months have my approval.
Got it.
So
that's big.
There's great future right now.
You know, and having been a fairly recent resident of this great city, and I live proudly also in South Utica and love it, I think one of the things that we forget is that we maybe are more pessimistic than the economic and development curve that we're on would indicate, right?
Sure.
So we live in a world where we have to be beggars can't be choosers, and we have to take whatever comes our way. You know, so the line I hear all the time is, well, better some development than no development. It's vacant land, or it's on the public tax roll, or whatever I've heard. it would be important for the residents to hear that the optimism but caution in this report, it was a balance. The optimism is we've, for the most part, turned that corner and we're really on an upward trajectory, and I think there is growing excitement about our future, and that is reflected in the optimistic language of this report. The cautionary tale is to leave behind our tendency to not assert, as both residents and using the political power we have, to hold the mayor and council really accountable for the fact the decisions they're making right now in the moment on one single project are going to endure and create a 50 or 100-year impact. So what is it we all want? And the word we used repeatedly in this report is coherence. What we really want them to pay attention to is to be transparent about how they are coherently following a plan. And we are at the point where I think we can make choices with developers. I think there are going to be more projects and more opportunity that want us than we might necessarily want, Bill. And I think that's a shift that we haven't really seen manifested yet in our planning processes at the city, and that's really what the committee is telling everybody we need to do.
You know, Bill, you and the media and the public in general can provide a great service here too. All we've done is create this report, but it's up to the public and the public's representative, the members of the media, to make sure that the government of the city adheres to the recommendations. Yes.
And can you talk about some specifics of the recommendations? Can we get into some of that? By the way, does it touch on the hospital?
I knew you were going to go there.
I mean, how do I not go there?
Is there a plan for a hospital?
What hospital? So let me, a couple of things that are important. One is we deliberately in our scope and charge, Bill, we made a statement in the report that we intended to rise above any political or planning conversations about any particular project. So I will let my three members express personally, if they wish, what their position is on the hospital downtown. But the committee took no position, nor will it take a position on that, because it would be inappropriate, because we're not a planning function.
But I guess my question would be, doesn't it, if the hospital goes downtown, wouldn't it change direction as to which way we might want to go?
Yes. But before we get into that, because JK's itching, I'm sure, to say something.
He's ready.
And I'm going to let him in a second. But let me say this. So you have to remember that, first of all, we all want a hospital. We want a high-quality hospital, and we want that hospital to be proximate to the populations it serves. This is a very fundamental assumption in planning. Okay, so back to your question about our recommendations. There are 10, but it really arcs off of a very simple point. The original master plan brilliantly, and full credit to JK and his colleagues who did this, brilliantly defined themed districts in this city. So for the residents out there who are listening to this, who are perhaps currently engaged in opposition to the hospital, I would ask them a simple, and not designed to be provocative, but a simple question. Okay, if not downtown, where?
Right.
And nobody who is opposed to the downtown hospital has yet convinced me that they've thought about this. So how about a hospital in an arts and culture district? It fits in there, right, Bill? Or how about in a sports and entertainment area? It must fit in there, Bill. Or how about in the middle of a residential neighborhood? Or how about this? How about we oppose it long enough that it ends up in New Hartford, so that yet again we have it serving the smallest portion of our population instead of our urban population.
Right,
so,
got it.
So I think it's important for us to not just fall into the trap of not in my backyard, which is a common issue in planning, and ask ourselves a simple question. If I looked at the original master plan and I looked at what we've just done, there is no more logical a district, it seems to me, to put a hospital than downtown.
Right.
Now, could we debate where downtown? Can we debate the traffic? Can we debate, the intensity of the development? Yeah, go ahead. Have at it. But from a principle point of view, where else would you put it if not downtown?
Right.
And now, JK, over to you.
Well, I think, Bill, we can compare two projects and get at this issue of the viability of a hospital at someplace in the city. To begin with, again, sorry to be a lawyer, but the legislation that empowers this whole project, the original $300 million.
We're talking about the hospital project.
Yes, the hospital project specifies
city.
Yes. So let's
likely deliberately, one presumes.
Well, I'm sure that wasn't by accident.
Well, it seems that when the money disappeared, the governor was sending a message. I kind of felt.
Might have said that.
And so, the framework within which we have to think about this hospital project is the framework of the city limits of Utica. So let's start with that. And let's compare it to another project. We don't talk about it much. I don't know if it's gotten a lot of press, but the business program at Utica College is bringing 400 to 600 people into downtown Utica every day.
Go Utica.
And they're using existing buildings, existing infrastructure. It hasn't cost the taxpayers anything. It's a net plus to Utica.
Now
let's talk about the hospital.
Yeah.
The hospital will bring a lot of people downtown. Undoubtedly, whenever you do a brick and mortar project of that size, there will be some disruption.
Yeah.
And there will be property owners whose property will be sold by one means or another.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be true wherever in the city we did this project.
Understood. And Bob, do you want to? I mean, you've been all over the world.
I had the opportunity, Bill, to be on a hospital board for 7 years.
Okay.
And we went through a national search, not only for an architect, but went through a very deep analysis involving the public, involving all existing legislation, involving a very succinct master plan taken for 10, 20, 50, and 100 years out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to me, again, I'm familiar with what Utica looked like in 1963. I think it boils down, again, from my experience on a hospital board, to the quality of care. And I think that's got to be the most important issue that we're dealing with. And from a practical point of view, when I see physicians leaving a hospital family, setting up their own practices, going elsewhere, I begin to wonder if the discipline is going to be there to support the consolidation efforts that they're talking about.
Right.
So I think
Good
that
question.
it needs a lot of study.
Yeah.
I think I'm redoing the Bank of Utica as an architect. I believe in downtown. I think downtown is going to thrive on an upward trend. And I think also, as I reflect on the Gateway Historic Canal District design standards, this is a zoning ordinance adopted by the city. There's very succinct guidelines, design guidelines, for the area from the railroads to Columbia, the arterial to Genesee, that catchment area.
Yeah.
So I think that you need quality design as we go into the future, no matter where projects are going. Harbor Point, right on down.
Sure. And, I'm going to take Bob for, not to task, but I'm going to say that design and building standards is one thing. But thematically, here's an intriguing question. We can debate the design of the hospital, but its primary purpose is to deliver care to our population.
Sure. Yeah.
And where is the primary population to which it delivers care? And the answer is they are primarily located proximate to downtown. So if you go back to first principles on any of these, quite apart from what it may look like in the design standards, which is super important, I just, again, I'm going to ask us to think, as we try to in this report, think about the purposes of downtown. So downtown should embrace those activities that generate, as an example, foot traffic and pedestrians and ancillary services and purchasing and parking and meals and all that stuff. Think about what, and I appreciate the nod in our direction, but think about what it's like to bring from Utica College 400 to 600 students. Think about what it's like to bring hundreds of people a day. Yes, it creates traffic issues, and we need to think about parking and access. But we have experts who can think about parking and traffic and access.
Sure.
The net benefit is to restore something. If I've heard it once, I've heard it a million times. I have heard all of the enthusiasm for the old days, the good old days, when we had our hamburger from Woolworths and there was busy corner. The busy corner is no longer that busy, right?
Yeah.
But so what about if we return that population downtown to a place where it really is busy? And when you walk, you don't feel like you're walking through a ghost town. You feel like you're walking through something that's vibrant and energetic and alive and real. There are some benefits to this that I think are not making their way into the debate, and I would implore those folks with the positive perspective, including our hospital board, to get some of those messages out, because I think in the vacuum of that, people are falling into the automatic opposition to something that I'm not sure if they stopped and reflected on, they would necessarily be opposed to in the same way.
Bill, I would hope that you and the media and the public will focus as much on quality of care as you do on brick and mortar or location of a new hospital, because there's been recent news about our local physicians.
Yeah, we were in the midst of all of that.
Yes,
talking about that here.
And what good is a hospital without a cadre of dedicated physicians? And Utica has always had a great base of doctors. When I began my career, Utica had maybe not every specialty, but had competent physicians in most medical specialties. And the question is, what will this new hospital do to enhance quality of care. It's not just about a new building.
Right, and where it's going, and it's what are the services to this community? That's
and we have to be careful. We
paramount.
We have to be careful, Bill. We don't end up with edifice complex, Oedipus complex, edifice complex, because I think there's more focus on the building than there is on the purpose of the building and its role.
Some other key. I was some of my radio time I spent in Providence, where the universities, the colleges, really bought into downtown. Johnson and Wales owns a big part of downtown. It allowed all those old buildings much earlier than we're doing this. It allowed that city to bounce back, because who has that money to be able to make those buildings, bring them back to pristine condition? It's the colleges and the universities, and that's worked really well
and the
for
lifeblood,
them.
Constant infusion of young people
downtown
to the area.
Who come to the area, and by the way, large numbers of whom, track record will show, opt to stay. That's really interesting. When you go to college, they often stay. But, anyway, I often say this. I mean, Utica College has both an opportunity and a responsibility. It is an important anchor in this community. And so we all believe, from President Hutton and President-elect Casamento and all the folks there, that really there is a need for us to vote with our feet, with our students, with our funds, to make sure that we support the city.
Yeah.
And I said to somebody when I arrived, I said, I don't just work at Utica College, I work at Utica's College. And I think that there is this sense of embracing the college and the importance of what we're doing, particularly for the business school right now. The Brennick Center is going to be a stunning building. I'm, of course, on the inside, so most of you haven't seen it yet. But the center is going to be stunning. It is going to make a huge difference in downtown. And it will shape, I think, the beginnings of more of this turnaround of downtown. So
a sign of it is when you do drive down Genesee Street, or driving up Genesee Street, and you look to the left, and that the way they the signage has been put up in that building, it looks really good.
Yeah.
And of course, then there's the Hage building.
And then there's the Hage building, which
an icon.
Pristine. We're talking pristine, right?
And a real leader in what needs to be done in the future as we design buildings to the net zero concept.
I do like what you're doing at Bank of Utica.
It's beautiful.
It's
exciting.
gonna be
And it's
beautiful.
really outstanding that they have made a commitment to downtown Utica.
Right.
So it's really a great opportunity.
And they're even putting in a tower.
The tower, which will go back to City
evocative
Hall.
of the old
Yeah.
City Hall.
I'm told I am definitely out of time. But I can
And
do
here we
this.
came all this way.
I cannot believe it. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
We have high hopes.
Thank you.
That's a pretty big thing to have right now. So, all right, listen, we got a break. Beautiful day on the way here today. Sunshine and the highs going into the mid-80s. Enjoy your day. We have news, top of the hour, and then Glenn Beck follows here. It's First News Keeler in the morning on WIBX.